we've talked a lot about discrimination and segregation in housing, but there's also some evidence that people choose to self-segregate. They choose to live in neighborhoods because of what you just described, because of the institutions, et cetera, or because of the presence of churches, or because of the presence of other Latinos in this neighborhood.
Got it.
Latinos are among the most segregated, particularly when it comes to schools, and particularly when it comes to their neighborhoods. But when you see, for example, a Latino community that's relatively new, say in a place like Minnesota, Latino immigrants are moving to a place with other Latino immigrants, and eventually that leads to the development of immigrant services, et cetera, in that place. Some parts of the country are more advanced on this than others, but you see sort of this interesting diversity around the country on the institutions, but Latinos looking for Latinos.
What's the number behind that, since you're a numbers guy, that about self-choosing to be in these areas?
It's a good question. When you take a look at Latino students in schools, sort of as this measure, you'll find that about 80+% of Latino students attend schools that are majority Latino. So they're in schools that are largely with other Hispanic students, and that's a reflection of where these families are partly choosing to live, but there's more to it than just where they're choosing. There's also some segregation, et cetera, and some historical circumstances as well.
So you're talking about places like the Mission District in San Francisco, for instance, which has a very vibrant Latino, Hispanic American community.
But changing,
yes.
But changing it, which is where I'm flipping this to. So on the flip side, then we have the pushing out of this great diversity, these great communities that you're describing, whether you opt in or not. Lisa.
Complex. Well, it's been 50 years since the investments in institutions called community development corporations. It was part of the response to the war on poverty. It was part of the war on poverty. And I think that we have sort of neglected that set of institutions. Community development corporations essentially are nonprofit real estate brokers. And they may not wear collars. Well, some of them do, actually, because there are many church-based CDCs. But there's an infrastructure that used to really focus in on the building of neighborhoods, the building of community, and diverse neighborhood relationships and those social networks. And I think that there are many that are still out there. You know, we have many in our network, the National Coalition for Asian Pacific American Community Development. We are founded by CDC's, national capacity. But many of our institutions, like the East Bay Asian Local Development Corporation in Oakland, they serve 40% African American, 40% Asian, and 20% Latino, roughly. And so I think that those are really interesting statistics. So you have Asian-led institutions that are serving a very multiracial population, reflecting those neighborhoods in which they exist. So I think that there are a lot of actually bright spots. I think, Mark, you bring up an interesting issue that we deal with all the time with regards to these ethnic enclaves, right? And whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. And it's hard to say whether it's negative or positive completely.